Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let's briefly touch on Muhammad Ali. He's getting buried today. I think it's very important for people to get a full, real view on his life. Right? What I want folks to do here on YouTube is to Google the second Ali Liston fight. There is footage here on YouTube of the ring entrance. Right? Sonny Liston, believe it or not, one of history's more surly champions, is actually the crowd favorite. When Ali comes in the ring, he's booed. Now I know we're having a love fest now. Right? I know everyone's saying, oh, Ali was so courageous and stuff like that. Just understand that Ali was hated by the time we come around to the rematch against Sonny Liston. Right? This is before all the Vietnam stuff. Right? Ali isn't loved until later. In fact, if you research him, you're going to find out that there's a year in the mid-60s where Ring Magazine comes out and says, we're not going to name a Fighter of the Year. We were going to name Muhammad Ali. But he doesn't have the sportsmanship. Right? This was, of course, after Ali punished guys who refused to call him Muhammad Ali. Right? Ali in fights would say, what's my name? As he pummeled opponents. Right? The Ernie Terrell fight is a legendary fight with all of this. So understand, Ali was one of those guys who we, the boxing public, did not love early on. Let me say this too. There's a meeting that takes place in 1967 that history really needs to examine further. Right? We have a good source on what happened at the meeting. Ali, who at this point decides he's not going to be in the Vietnam War. Right? In part because Elijah Muhammad did not participate in World War II. Right? You need to look at Elijah Muhammad's life and then look at Ali's life. Understand, after Malcolm X gets assassinated, right, Ali is looking to Elijah Muhammad for guidance. If you come across Ali interviews during that period of time, Ali, in practically every paragraph, is referring to Elijah Muhammad, right, who himself was a conscientious objector. Well, in 1967, when people like Jackie Robinson, a guy who himself served in the military, right? If you dig deeper in Jackie Robinson's background, you're going to find out that there's an incident when Robinson's in the Army where he refuses to sit on the back of the bus. Right? Understand, there are many African American athletes, men, who stood up for themselves back then. I don't want people to think that Ali is the first athlete to stand up for himself. In fact, in my eyes, my favorite athlete of all time is Jack Johnson. I view Jack Johnson as even more defiant than I view Ali. Well, in '67, Ali reaches out to a fighter who himself was accused of deserting the army. Right? Ali asked for a meeting with Walker Smith, who went by the stage name Ray Robinson. Right? So he meets up with Sugar Ray Robinson, who, Google this, was accused of deserting the army. And it's a little bit sketchy, folks, as to whether or not he did. Let's be blunt here. Right? He needed Joe Louis's help. Right? Ali reaches out to Ray Robinson, who Ali idolized. Ali actually had asked Robinson to be his manager right? And that's important because, of course, Herbert Muhammad was Ali's manager. Well, to make a long story short, Ray Robinson, in his autobiography, that's the source, says that he told Ali to fight in Vietnam. Right? Ali then says to him that he's afraid. Right? Afraid. So Ray Robinson looks at him, knowing that Ali's mentor years ago, Malcolm X, had been assassinated. And Ray Robinson asks him the question point blank. He says, "Are you afraid of the Nation of Islam?" Right? And Ali refuses to answer the question. Right? Understand, it's complicated then. Right? It's complicated. Right? In 68, 60s are a crazy decade. Right? Martin Luther King Jr. gets assassinated. Robert F. Kennedy gets assassinated. Right? That's, of course, after in 63, John F. Kennedy, who's the real author of the 64 Civil Rights Act, himself gets assassinated. Right? The stakes at that moment in time couldn't have been higher. Right? Let me say this, too, with regard to the Malcolm X assassination. As people know, I have a Dwyer crime channel here on YouTube. Now, I haven't discussed that assassination. I'm just here to tell you, if you research that assassination, right, that assassination opens up questions as to who actually did it. Right? The guys arrested and convicted may not have been the people who actually perpetrated the crime, as obvious as that crime looks. Right? So understand, Ali's in a delicate place in 1967. He doesn't know who he can trust. Right? He understands. He understands that he has become a poster boy for the war resistance movement. Right? But his own views are a little bit more complicated. Right? So just understand, Ali himself, very complicated individual. Understand, too, if you track his life, right? He makes some statements about, you know, a man's place in the home and a woman's place in the home, right? The kind of woman who would be desirable. But yet that's not quite how he lived his life. Right? Understand, there's a public Ali and then there's a private Ali. Right? Understand, it's all complicated. Let me say this too. One of the things I hope people do is talk to older folks. You have a lot of people who were really radical back in the day, really stuck their necks out, took chances back in the day, were on the cutting edge back in the day, who now come across as the establishment. Right? One of history's more interesting figures is the guy who Jim Brown, yes, that Jim Brown, introduces to Muhammad Ali. Who Ali, and this is, you know, as Ali is, right, militant in the 60s, who Ali picks as his promoter, Bob Arum. Understand, Bob Arum in interviews has said that his parents came to him and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Bob Arum, by his own admission, didn't even know the boxing promotion business. Right? He was just a trusted attorney that Jim Brown respected. Right? Bob Arum is one of the best interviews in boxing. I hope young people, because I know Bob had problems with Floyd Mayweather later and stuff like that, I hope young people appreciate that Bob Arum really was a revolutionary back then, right? He and Ali couldn't get fights for a period of time, not because of the U.S. government, but because venue owners didn't want to have fights involving draft dodgers. let me say this too. Ali hadn't won his legal case. In fact, quite frankly, in my opinion, he didn't win the legal case to the lawyers out there. Right? He really didn't win his legal case when he fights Jerry Quarry, right, on his comeback. And I'll just say this. I grew up with Ali in the 70s, not the 60s. You can tell by how Jerry Quarry, we're not talking Joe Frazier, we're talking Jerry Quarry. You can tell by how Jerry Quarry's left hook is landing on Ali and how Ali is moving, that he's lost a lot of the special movement that made him one of boxing's best ever. Right? In other words, the Ali of the 60s, in my opinion, cleans up the Ali of the 70s. Cleans him up. Right? Much better moving, much better timing. Right? So, just food for thought. Let's talk about Vasyl Lomachenko and Roman Martinez. I'll say this. I think this fight is unbettable. I'm more excited taking the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals for Game 4 in Cleveland, right? And the Warriors are 2-point dogs than I am betting on this fight. I think it's a mismatch, right? Understand, Vasyl Lomachenko, like young Ali, has a gift that doesn't come through fully in CompuBox numbers, right? He's excellent with his timing and lateral movement, right? You really can't quantify it. Great lateral movement. You're not going to see it in a CompuBox printout, right? Now, I'm a skeptic of fighters like Roman Martinez, who, in my opinion, got thoroughly outboxed by Ricky Burns a few years ago. When I see a fighter on the world stage get outboxed like that, right, then I'm going to say, okay, well, against a master boxer, and that's what Vasyl Lomachenko is, right, chances are Martinez is going to be undressed again. Now, I know Orlando Salido, who Martinez beat and then got a draw with, beat Lomachenko. But understand, Salido throws a much higher volume of punches than Martinez. Just look at their last fight. Salido's over 1,000 punches, or close to it. Martinez doesn't get to 700. Also, Salido is more fearless in diving in and going to the body, right? The way to stop Lomachenko's lateral movement is to crowd him, right? There's some Mike Tyson in Orlando Salido that doesn't exist in Roman Martinez. So I feel that Vasyl Lomachenko is going to win this fight. I think he's going to win it handily, right? Here's the problem. The casinos think so too. There's risk involved in every bet. And this fight, unfortunately, is priced in such a way that, in my opinion, you're just not getting enough return taking Vasyl Lomachenko. Right? So, my recommendation to you is to stand on the sidelines. Gamblers need to know when to say when. Right? While I think Lomachenko wins this fight, right, I don't like the payout, and I'm not going to take the risks. The spread here is just too far apart, right? I like Lomachenko to beat Rocky Martinez. I think Lomachenko is really one of boxing's better technicians, right? And against a guy who doesn't hit that hard, right? Martinez isn't, a completely concussive KO puncher. Against a guy who's relying really more on effort, an overachiever, who's world class, but is an overachiever nonetheless, I believe a Vasyl Lomachenko is going to shine. right? Because Lomachenko, quite frankly, is a dominant technician whose lateral movement and timing is going to keep Martinez turning like a top. I like Vasyl Lomachenko to win this fight. I'm just not going to bet on it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.